All right, so energy. Anybody tell me what that is? The ability to do work, okay? So when we talk about cellular energy, that's the ability for the cell to do work, for the cell to function, okay? Now, does anybody know what the study of energy is called? It's not an ology. It's one of the few things where the study is not an ology. I'm sure you guys have heard this word. Thermodynamics, okay? And so thermodynamics is the study of energy and its flow. All right? And so we're going to talk about the first two rules, the first two laws of thermodynamics, okay? Anybody got a guess as the first one? I know we've went over this. Energy cannot. Yep, energy cannot be. I know, one of you guys.
Come on, smart people.
Ryan. Created and destroyed.
Yeah, perfect.
Stop being so shy.
Created or destroyed. However, energy can changes form. Okay? So like when we were in 8th grade and we talked about how energy switches from like potential energy to kinetic energy, right? That's the changing there.
Did you do that?
What?
Did you drop that first?
Yeah. Because otherwise it didn't make kinetic energy. Otherwise it'd just be potential energy. Okay? So we've got energy cannot be created or destroyed. Energy does change forms though. Okay? Second thing is that, what was that noise? Energy always undergoes a loss of energy. What is that noise? Yeah. So anyway, it undergoes a loss of energy when transformed. Okay? We also talked, why do birds sit on power lines? Power lines are warm, right? Even though we use copper and really good conductors, you're always going to lose some energy. And when you lose that energy, it generally comes off as thermal energy, heat energy. Okay? Loss becomes thermal energy. Okay? So any questions about energy right off the bat? Just basics of energy. The answer appears to be no. There's not too much to go through today. We're just going to go through like the basics. Then on Wednesday we'll hit photosynthesis when we do that lab as well. Okay? Is everybody still writing this? That little buzzy sound is going to bother me. Alright, I'm going to erase this then. Okay, so when we talk about organisms. So, how organisms get energy. Okay, there's two main ways that organisms get energy. Okay, you're either going to be an autotroph. Okay, there's another name for autotrophs. Does anybody know it? Starts with a P. PR. PRO.
Proteins?
What?
It's not proteins, is it?
Nope.
Ah, dang.
Okay, so autotrophs are also known as producers. Okay, these are organisms that make own food. Okay, there's two main ways that they produce food. It's either going to be through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. Okay, chemosynthesis is done by things. So on thermal vents at like the bottom of the ocean, you'll see like those tube worms that like live around there. Okay, instead of taking sunlight energy like plants do to make it glucose, they take chemical energies from like the sulfuric acid that's down there. All right, just a different thing, but they're doing essentially the same thing. They're just using a different type of energy to get it started. Okay. So anyway, these are things like plants and plankton. There's two types of plankton. Phytoplankton is the one that does photosynthesis. Zooplankton is a predatory thing. Okay, so speaking of, we've got producers, and then what's the opposite of a producer? A consumer, which is also known as a heterotroph. Okay, and these eat other organisms for food, energy. Okay, there's lots of different types of heterotrophs, and we'll get into that more when we start talking about ecological things. But you're going to have your carnivores, your omnivores, your herbivores, okay? So it just kind of depends. But all of them utilize that. Okay? Does anybody have any questions about either of those? Cool, cool, cool. Alright, looks like everybody's done writing. Alright, now, this is where we're going to start talking about photosynthesis and cellular respiration, okay? But the first thing, those two things are under the bigger umbrella of metabolic pathways. Okay? So metabolic pathways, we have to refer to our metabolism. Anybody know what metabolism is? Evan?
It's like, how much, like, so it makes it for, you can lose weight easier, basically.
Kind of. So if you have really fast metabolism, you generally will burn energy quicker. Slow metabolism takes a longer time to burn energy, okay? But metabolism itself is just all the chemical reactions in a cell, okay? So, all the chemical reactions, if you have fast metabolism, you're doing more chemical reactions, you need more energy, you're going to burn that faster, okay? Technically, it's more advantageous to have a slow metabolism because you keep energy, but then you kind of get the pudge, okay? So, we've got metabolism, okay? Now we need to talk about the two types of metabolic pathways, okay? You're going to have catabolic, and you're also going to have anabolic. Okay, so catabolic pathways, these take molecules and break them down to use or to create, I don't want to say to create, to use stored energy. Okay, so it takes something and it breaks it down in order to get the energy out of it. Cellular respiration takes glucose and it breaks down a glucose molecule in order to get ATP, right? So cellular respiration is catabolic. Okay? Cellular respiration this breaks down glucose for energy. Okay? And that's as simple of a definition as you can have for cellular respiration. If you remember that, you'll do probably not that great if that's the only thing you remember when we actually do cellular respiration, but you'll do okay. So if catabolic is breaking things down, what do you think anabolic is? Building things up, okay? So one of the ways I always remember this, is anybody, so obviously you guys have heard of like steroids, right? When people are taking steroids to build muscles, what are those things called? Anabolic steroids. Because anabolic steroids help build muscle, okay? That's why it's called anabolic. So anabolic is used to, these are an anabolic pathway. Ugh. Anabolic pathways build molecules to store energy. Okay? Considering that cellular respiration is catabolic, what do you think is going to be anabolic? There's two main things. We've already talked about it a couple times. Start with a P. Okay, so photosynthesis, this is where the plants make glucose, okay? These will use CO2, H2O, and sunlight to make glucose. Okay? Are there any questions there? And when we actually start talking about these two in more detail, so like when we start talking about photosynthesis and I draw out the whole photosynthesis equation, you'll see that photosynthesis and cellular respiration are just kind of mirror images of each other. But in photosynthesis, the energy we use to make the molecules comes from the sun, okay? And in cellular respiration, the energy we get, okay, when we break it down, is in the form of ATP, okay? So they're pretty much mirror images, except the energy used in this comes from the sun and the energy gained comes from ATP, all right? So as long as the sun's here, we've got pretty much energy cycling through, all right? Speaking of ATP, we should probably talk about what that is, all right?